so for this next example, I'm going to be working exactly on the same skirt as we used to add volume at the hem, but this time we're adding on volume at the hem and at the seam. So the skirt will be like so, but with gathers that run from here to create a fullness that would be much more like that than like that. So, and you'd still have the fullness at the bottom edge. You'd still have all the same options in terms of what you did with the fullness here. Don't know, it looked terribly dated looking skirt. However, that's that's how you would go about this. So don't forget, I'm expecting a front and a back. With the last demonstration, I just did the front, but obviously we've done fronts and backs for everything else, and the rules will remain the same. Okay, so if we were going to make this section into gather, we need to trace it off again. So we need that section traced off just as it stands. To be able to do the manipulations that will give us the fullness that we require. Okay. I'm still carrying on down that line where it had been tapered. Okay, so last time when we did the fullness at the hem, we did lots of slashes, and one of the reasons we did that was so we could get a really nice smooth line in the pattern for the lower half. With the gathers, we're not really as worried about that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to give us one. What am I going to do? Right, I'm going to give us 2 slashes to one side of my balance mark, and I'm going to give us 2 slashes to the other side of our balance mark. And what we also want, although we've got the hem, we're going to work with the hem. I was going to say what you want is another horizontal line to make sure that you're on the right track. I'm going to do this in case you're doing something that has the shaped hem, just so as you can see the technique. You now take it to our piece of folded paper and we get ready to do the slashing. Before we do the slashing, we are going to give ourselves a horizontal line. Got the folded paper here, we're going for a horizontal line here, which means we'll be able to line this up nicely. Now, because these are going to be completely cut separate, I'm going to number them just on the off chance that they get separated and we don't know what they are. So I'm going in and I'm cutting straight through. And like I say, you can see I've just not been anything like as careful in terms of the distance between the slashes or as I was when we were doing the previous technique. So here we go. I'm gonna give myself that centre front nice and straight with the centre front. I'm going to pop a pin in it. We need to think about how much, oh, and I'm lining the horizontal that I added up with the horizontal that I put onto what will be the pattern piece. Now, to get a good gather, you want a sort of minimum of twice as much fabric as you have on the original line. Depending on how fat the fabric is, how thick the fabric is that you're going to be using, you can put much more. If you're using fine fabric, you can go 3 times, 3.5 times more, and get a gather and it sit quite nice. So what I'm going for is I'm going to go for roughly, that's 6 and that's 4. I'm going roughly 1.5 times. And as I move these across, I'm going to be pinning into the paper. So let me keep that fairly regular, what I'm adding in, and keep the horizontals of the original and the horizontal of the pattern together. 5, see, that's what, oh, 3. That's why you number them. Oh, doing a bit of a guess for this one. Oh, stop it, I need to measure it. Oh, the guess was pretty good. If I keep looking at the same measurement, I do tend to guess as I just know it. I think everybody does. I don't think it's just me. I think your eye starts to even things out for you. And that just fits on. So that's great. You don't need it to do anything more than just fit on. So, if you have a look at what's happening here, I just stood on a plug and broke it. If we were to take that top line literally, it would be down and straight across and down and straight across and down and straight across, etc. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a line that is kind of a mean line between these areas. So we want something that run smoothly. Let me do this in pencil first because it's not guaranteed to be gorgeous first time out. I'm coming down through that point, which I do want to be fairly natural, but I'm coming higher than it is there, and I'm coming in lower than it is there. I'm coming in higher there, I'm coming in slightly lower there, I'm coming in slightly higher here, I'm coming in slightly lower there, all the way down, slightly lower, and then we want it to end like it began, exactly in the right position. So now I'm going to have a look at this and even it out. So I can do a nice even line following my first guesstimate that takes us through to the end. And that should gather back on really nicely. So we don't want the steps in it, and we could in theory just go for the top line all the time, or you could in theory just go for the bottom line all the time. You need to make a decision. My decision is always that I go for a mean line, so the line that is neither one nor the other, it sits between the two. So what I do want to do is to mark where my balance mark is. And I've got equal amounts set in to one side of the balance mark to the other side of the balance mark. So let me trace through this. I don't need to trace that line, don't be silly. I need to trace the hem line. I need to trace the side seam. I need to trace where my new top edges. Okay, side seam at right angles to that. Remember how we tapered the skirt originally? I'm going to take that little bit of taper off. I'm doing this one piece at a time just so it's easier for me to see what I'm doing. Got the balance mark in. Lovely, so this hem's straight, so we could have a blind hem on it if we wanted, so I'm going to give it a 2.5 centimetre blind hem. Giving it a centimetre seam allowance at the side seam because that's what the body of the skirt has, and I'm giving us a centimetre seam allowance all along that top edge. Making sure the balance mark is on, and I am going to mark here with a wiggly line. And to mark that wiggly line, gather to fit. So you have your balance marked, you know where your side seam is, so that's a really easy instruction. We're going to say that the grain is running with the centre front. And we'll just cut round that so you can see the difference in the two peplums that would fit onto the same body of the skirt. You probably want to pin your pieces of paper together to make sure you get a good symmetrical pattern. Now, in the wall charts, the instructions sheets, there are instructions for making an asymmetrical horizontal line. Obviously, if you're doing something asymmetrical, you need the entire front and the entire back to be able to plot where your star lines are. So this is the pattern piece that would give you this, and just to show you the main body, let's get rid of that. So it's got the same balance mark, but this is the piece that would be gathered into this piece, and this is how the other one looks. So that is the difference. That's the difference between fullness at the hem and fullness in through a gather. Okay, I think that's probably enough. So don't forget, if you're doing it asymmetrical, you need to work from the whole front to a whole back, or whole front and a whole back. And there are instructions, but I'm not going to film it. Okay.